Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nic Cage Fight podcast, where we aggressively pursue a movie in a tone-deaf fashion until they finally succumb and give up the goods. We do this because, goddamn, do erotic thrillers and romantic comedies need to examine to a deeper level a better understanding of the concept of consent. I am one of your hosts, Josh, and I am joined, as always, with Rich and Ryan. How are we?
You had a hard time getting through that one.
A little bit.
First stumble of the whole series.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, look, it's. I think this is episode. This is gonna end up being episode 45. So, like, hell, man, 44 episodes and not a strikeout.
That's okay. I'll reset the high score eventually. 0 days without an accident.
Gotta get you a sign.
Yeah. No, we are here to wrap up the plot synopsis and review of Zandalee, the 1991 erotic thriller starring Nic Cage, our boy. And where we last left off was I want to shake you naked and eat you alive line. And this was, despite being a fantastic place for a cliffhanger, this was one of the intercut scenes where we cut from Nic Cage shooting a shot to Terry at his business luncheon. And he's being invited to spend a weekend with the new company heads. His father's company has just been bought out. And then we cut immediately back over to Johnny and Zandalee rationalizing both of their choices to fuck over Terry by literally fucking. This scene includes a literal panty drop where Zandalee removes her underwear in an alley in New Orleans.
This when it's raining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
all right.
And despite removing her panties there, they then go back to Johnny's art studio to fuck. And apparently, Zandalee has gotten over her initial revulsion of Johnny and is fully down to cheat on her husband, who is also best friends with Johnny at this point. The pillow talk in this scene I found to be pretentious. It is supposed to be artsy, the film in general, I mean, but the back and forth is a little, the dialogue I found a little droll.
Limp is the term I would use.
Well, post coitus, I guess that makes sense. But Johnny also, we get another exactly, I feel like what you would expect from an artsy erotic film. Johnny dips his fingers into some paint and starts sort of daubing it on Zandalee's nude body at this point. Another excuse to like show some feminine pubic hair, which I think is one of the sticking points with the rating issue in general, but who knows?
Yeah, I get there's a lot in this movie that it seems like it's nudity for nudity's sake. You could have very easily made this movie PG-13.
I feel like you could have made it more comfortably in the R rating. I'm not sure if you could hit. There's too many exposed breasts for PG-13.
No. But what I'm saying is that it's not like it's not like the exposed breasts are integral to the storyline. Everything to tell this story you could have done without the breasts, and there's not a whole lot of cursing in it.
No, there is some aggressive humping, though. I'm not sure if you can pull that off in PG-13. Like, I know you can
either, because like fucking the MPAA, they're all about put as much violence as you want in this movie, but put a little bit of sex. We're gonna throw NC-17 on it.
Well, that's the other, like, it's one of those things where it's not down to, and if the viewers or listeners aren't aware, professionally, I am an analyst. I don't think there is a hard count on things that determine what sort of rating bracket that you fall under. I think it's largely subjective, but
yes,
I'm not an industry insider.
It's very much pornography as I know it when I see it kind of deal.
Yeah, but I do think a certain number of exposed breasts is going to put you outside of PG-13 almost immediately. I don't even know if you could just show breasts in PG-13, period. I know you can get a curse word in, but
not as far as the 90s. In the 80s, you could get away with it.
I feel like I have seen a PG-13 movie with like 2 seconds of boob in it.
I've seen PG movies that have boob in it.
But those are older films, right?
No, I'm talking about the 90s, like when the PG-13 rating was like an actual thing. I'm gonna Google this now because it's gonna.
Yeah,
I'm
all
way
of us
ahead of
are
you.
rapidly typing like what PG-13 movie has boobs in it, like a 13-year-old.
Hey, National Lampoon's European Vacation. That one's got some boobs in it.
And that's PG-13.
That is in fact PG-13.
There you go.
I've also got Titanic's PG-13.
Titanic is what I was thinking.
I didn't realize Titanic.
Nell is PG-13
because that's a history movie. So
Airplane
historical
is PG and has
fine.
boobs in it.
Okay, but I'm assuming not to the gratuitous level that Zandalee has. I mean, even if you cut out the pubic hair.
Airplane, you have one shot with boobs in it, and it's when the plane starts going down and everybody's running around, and there's like a single woman that shows up for a second, turns around, you see her topless, and then it cuts away.
All right, so boobs don't exclude you from PG-13. I think the number of that and straight humping scenes, even without genitalia explicitly visible, would exclude this film from being able to be done that way. And not for nothing, not to lend any sort of credibility to the pretentiousness of nudity in art films, but sex is integral to the overall storyline here. I think to a high degree in general, at least for the story they're trying to tell, regardless of how competently they do that. I do think it's an important plot point. So I don't know if it could hit PG-13, but it could have skipped out on some of the back and forth between the NC-17 and the R rating and the multiple cuts that caused us to do some scrambling before we started recording today. So
yeah,
that I'll give you. Either way, at the next scene that we jump to, Johnny is doing magic tricks at a bar for a priest. And
Which
this is
rules. I mean,
that
I
is
like
cool.
that.
Yeah, look, I think it's inherently funny and requires no explanation as to why doing magic tricks to a priest is hilarious.
I've known priests who do like sleight of hand stage magic stuff, not like during their priestliness, but just as a hobby.
They're trying to become saints.
I used to frequent like magic shops when I was a little kid, and at least one of the regulars was a priest.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna tell you guys in confidence and all our listeners, I did a little bit more than dabbling with close-up magic back in the day, and if you get me drunk enough, I will still do my favorite trick, which was 2-card Monty. Which
that's
is
a classic.
It's a good one. But yeah, the sleight of hand shit, the card shark shit, like dealing from the bottom of the deck and card control in general is fun. It's a fun hobby.
It's fun enough. I have a whole bookshelf of magic books.
Oh shit. I'm gonna have to lend you something. I got something special I'll have to bring over at some point that you might appreciate it. There's a magician I followed whose name I'm hoping I'm going to get right after many years of not paying attention to it. There's a guy named, I think it was Jay Sankey, who was fucking hilarious. He was one of the dudes whose books and tutorials I actually purchased to learn card control. And he was one of those like comedy close-up magicians, which
like the great Jonathan.
Yes.
All right. Yeah,
is a fucking legend.
Absolutely. Have you seen the documentary where it kind of like it becomes unreliable narrator really quick, and I love that about it.
Does it? I have to check it out because I remember being obsessed with his specials back in the day. But I also heard that the documentary, like he went through some serious adversity and shit, like some real personal stuff happened, I think, over the course of his career. And I was like, I gotta watch that. And I put it off because I didn't want to be depressed. I had only like good childhood memories about watching his stuff, which is why I haven't seen the documentary yet.
The one I'm thinking of, it seems like he's fucking with the documentarians more than it is he's giving an honest appraisal of his life, which I really appreciate.
Oh, that's up my alley. All right, good. That I got something to look into after this. So Johnny is performing the dark arts for a priest, and it is relatively funny. And also, again, given my history with having some understanding of close-up magic, I without some relatively complex prop work, I don't know how he does the trick that he does. He actually has the selected card rise out of the center of the deck without his hands on the deck. I'm gonna chalk that up to movie magic. I'm not gonna try and dissect it too much there, but it's a good trick. It's certainly high level for a bar trick. You can get bought drinks for less than this.
You can do that with some floss. If you have like a little bit of floss, you can rig that up real quick.
Wax and stuff like that. Yeah. Still hard to pull up under right next to you scrutiny, but yeah, it is certainly possible. Still, I would think outside the bounds of what Johnny is typically doing. Either way, this is also the first direct inclination we get. I mean, like, Johnny has a particular vibe, but this is the first time the movie directly addresses that he's either buying or dealing drugs. I think ultimately he's buying drugs.
He's a mule. It's spelled out pretty clearly at one point or another, but he's muling cocaine for that one guy.
Okay. That's Pepe, right?
I think that's that guy's name.
That's the guy's name.
Yeah.
I have him in my notes somewhere, but just not in this scene. But like, the bartender is facilitating these sort of transactions as a middleman. Either way, it's shady to a certain extent, but Terry comes into the bar and runs into Johnny, and they have a little back and forth. And then we cut back to the apartment, and we get clued into a sort of side character, maybe main character story, where Tata, Terry's grandmother, who lives with him in Zandalee, has a secret boyfriend who's coming to dinner.
Get it, Granny.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Johnny is invited by Terry to come to the dinner, which the scene is actually very funny before it dives right back into the weird affair stuff, because Johnny shows up with a date, and that date is Marissa Tomei playing Remy.
Criminally underutilized in this movie. I love Marissa Tomei. I wish she was in like at least 25% more of it.
Oh, yeah. Also, I think I'm fucking it up, right? Because she clarifies the pronunciation, and it's Ramy.
Ramy, yes. That is that would be like the French Creole pronunciation of that name.
And I think it's Johnny who makes the joke, because Terry and Zandalee's last name is Martin, and that he makes a joke that if Tomei's character had married Terry, she would be Remy Martin.
Yes, which is funny because Martin isn't pronounced like that either. It's Martine.
So it would be Ramy Martin. Either way, I appreciate it's a stretch, but it's the kind of stretch where I appreciate your acrobatics. And if you can stick the landing, I'll give you a 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a dad joke. It's a good dad joke.
It is. Give them full credits for that. The other bit of sort of comedy that we get is Johnny tries to put his hand up Zandalee's skirt underneath the table, and she stabs his hand with a fork, which is appropriate. That makes perfect sense. But Zandalee is clearly, and again, I can't give enough credit while I'm clowning on the storyline and the overall writing. The actors and actresses in this film do a phenomenal job, because Zandalee is clearly upset with Johnny and Ramy's PDAs during the course of dinner. And sure enough, when she excuses herself to go to the kitchen and prepare dessert, Johnny comes up with an excuse to go in there and help her. And Zandalee is immediately like, do not bring your girlfriends into my house, laying down the law as far as Johnny's romantic interests outside of her, despite her being married to Johnny's best friend. But I do want to pause here for a moment, because I'm fairly certain this is the first example of, I guess, placing this movie in time. I think Johnny dabbles in some racial slurs in the dialogue here.
Look, this could have taken place in 2019, and those slurs still would have been said.
Right. It's not one I've heard uttered recently, but I'm like, when I heard it, I was like, that's fucking racist, right? It is, right?
I actually didn't catch it when I was watching the movie. I meant to go back because he gave me a timestamp in the group chat, but
they say it a lot.
Yeah.
For the uninitiated, look up who was the Green Bay Packers fullback in the 2000s, and it's his last name.
It's a sports reference I don't get, but that term is used not only by him, but Zandalee, and I'm not sure if Terry utters it later in the film either. I'm fairly certain it's racist.
That is definitely racist. I didn't catch that, but like a lot of the movie, people have fucking mush mouth.
Yeah.
They have mush mouth, and the sound mixing had the music way higher than the dialogue in the version I was watching a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's mush mouth and my hoagie mouth did not get along.
Yeah, so Johnny does a little bit of racial slurring, and Zandalee racial slurs right back at him. But all of this ends with Johnny and Zandalee fucking in the washer dryer room while everybody else is
waiting
having
on dessert.
dinner.
Well, no, they're waiting on dessert, I believe, and then they're like, "Where are you guys?" And Johnny's like, "I'm just washing up." And Zandalee is making dessert.
The conversation about dessert is overtly sexual as well. They're talking about Cherry's Jubilee. And Terry makes a bit of a crass sort of punchline about it being prepared in a particularly sensitive spot on the female anatomy. And Tata sort of like it chides him a little bit. But this scene is heavy on its imagery here. So like they're talking with like, sort of semi naughty, sexual innuendo at the table while
they're
Johnny
doubling
and
their
Zandalee,
entendres.
exactly, while Johnny and Zandalee are getting busy in the laundry room, and the very next scene is literally a giant statue or giant shadow of a Jesus statue projected on the side of a building.
I don't know if that's Jesus. I think it's one of the saints.
I'm almost positive it's like the Rio Grande Jesus.
Jesus the Redeemer.
Yeah.
But what makes me think it's not that is the cloak he's wearing looks more like one of the saints in like Catholic imagery, but I could be incorrect on that. I'd have to get a much higher resolution transfer of this film.
I'm almost positive it's a smaller version of the very famous, very gigantic Jesus statue.
This may be the excuse I need to buy that laser disc of Zandalee.
It is not.
Don't.
It is not.
You don't have
I'm
a
looking at
laser
it right
disc
here.
player. Nobody has a laser disc player.
I mean, but what if I want one so I can watch import anime laser discs from the 80s? I need my Gunsmith Cats.
We'll get you rips. We'll get you rips. Don't do it.
That's the Virgin Mother.
Oh, is it?
Yep. Okay.
I have a freeze frame right here, and being in Catholic school for a lot of years, I knows my holies peoples.
All right. Either way, religious iconography that's fucking close enough. Although there is a certain poetic justice in it being the Virgin Mother as opposed to Jesus himself.
In the quiet words of the Virgin Mother, come again.
Well, and then it goes right into a scene where a cross is very prominently displayed.
Oh, where? Because it cuts back to Terry and Zandalee in the bedroom, right?
Right, and their bedroom has a gigantic cross by the bed.
Yeah.
And the camera is like such a way that like you can't miss it.
So also the important part to point out here is the intercut between the laundry room fucking scene and the dinner double entendre scene is there's an indication in subtext that Terry has some suspicion that fuckery is afoot, right? Like he sort of like zones out and is like looking off into, the other parts of the house, and it's reinforced. Sorry.
I rolled this back a couple of times because I thought maybe he saw them in a mirror or something, but I think it's just like him getting vibes.
It is. I think it's pure vibes because the very next scene in the bedroom, like Zandalee comes out and she has her hair up and Terry's kind of insulting about it. He's like, "That's not you. That's fucked up. I fucking hate your hair." It's weird and it's out of nowhere, and also in the context of the character, it's one of the first times, even when Zandalee is pressing him about his career choices and his performance in the bedroom, that he gets mean without real provocation.
No, there is a scene earlier in the movie which has maybe the funniest camera shot of the entire movie, where they're having an argument about their sex life.
Yeah.
And then this was like back in like our part one, we just kind of glossed over it. But the camera thing I'm talking about is like the camera is showing Zandalee on the right side of the room, and then you just see Judge Reinhold like pop his head into frame. But yeah, like you can tell there's like, that was another kind of like sex argument. I think that might have been after I think
it's when he stopped. It's when he stopped.
Right. It's
when she came home drunk
because she was trying to get like anal or something.
But she was trying to get any sex from him whatsoever. Like the subtext is that he is impotent without his art now that he has to take over his father's company.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely the running subtext with Terry specifically. Also, it has to do with what Zandalee seems attracted to, which is the creative spirit, I guess, in general, right? So also, not for nothing, again, I didn't check if their quoting poetry back and forth was supposed to be Terry's shit or just famous poetry, but that seemed to be what started getting the engines revving, you know what I mean? But general boring business shit, it was not conducive to Terry's libido in general. Regardless, like he came out of nowhere with insulting her hairstyle in this particular scene, which I flip-flopped a couple of times, like between the staring off into space during the dinner conversation and the immediate follow-up with him sort of insulting her appearance. I was like, he fucking knows. And then multiple scenes after that both reinforced and degraded my position on that. I wasn't sure until, the scenes, which we'll get to shortly. So the very next day, we cut to the morning, and you bet your ass Zandalee is going for a jog again. And of course, Johnny ambushes her because, look, you got to vary up your running routes, people. Just assume you're under threat of assassination. Do not follow a set pattern, because if you do, a weird artist guy who's trying to get you to leave your husband is going to ambush you. At least based on the plot of this movie. But yeah, Johnny does exactly that. He ambushes Zandalee and sort of grills her on why she married Terry in the first place. So Johnny has a bit, not necessarily animosity, but criticism of Terry as an individual and his life choices. His contempt is pretty fucking obvious at this point, given the fact that he's carrying on an affair with his best friend's wife. But when pressed, Zandalee explains she married him because he was a poet. He had, a vision and something significant to say. And Johnny's response to this is to finger her in an alley in New Orleans. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's an appropriate response. But we cut to. I'm assuming it's Johnny's place, but the scene itself, you don't see like the rest of his usual like trashy artist loft. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming. But they're back in some location getting hot and heavy, and Johnny prompts her to quote, say it, and she calls out Terry's name. And this upsets Johnny, and they stop. They stop the act of lovemaking. And here is where we have to get into the differences in the versions that we watched. So I paid American dollars for a digital copy of this film. And it turns out that I got the cut version where they tried to cheat me out of the rest of this scene.
The whole hog of the scene, if you will.
Literally the whole hog of this scene. But thankfully, I have good and close friends that I've started a podcast with who righted this universal injustice
immediately.
You should get a refund. I mean, I paid $3.50 for this movie.
like before Josh could even say, hey, where did you see this? I was like, it's already going into Google Drive. Like,
yeah, I was like, I need a timestamp. I need, because if as the listener, I'm not sure how much of the behind the curtain that you're aware of. I do the scene by scene breakdown. I take notes and try and give you guys a blow by blow of these movies. So me having the true cut is kind of important because I'm trying to walk you all through these scenes. And in the pre-recording discussion, Rich brought up a scene. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And we realized the injustice that was done to me. So needless to say, I'll be writing a very passive aggressive email to Amazon Prime Video later tonight. But thankfully, we corrected this issue. And so I'm going to run you through the cut version real quick. And then we're going to go back.
Just to prepare yourselves, though, we've been calling this scene the cocaine hand scene. So just prepare yourself.
There's not enough preparation in the world. So after Zandalee calls out Terry's name in the scene that I originally watched and notated out for review in this episode, Zandalee leaves and goes back to her apartment with Terry. The uncut version, however, paints a very different picture. And also, this is very important because it qualifies as a potential nominee in our most unhinged scene category, which, of course, integrity comes first in the Nic Cage Fight podcast. So there's no way we can gloss over this easily.
I'd say this one ties another scene later in the film.
I agree, but it needs to be in contention. That's
absolutely
you erode the foundation of the rating system. If
it'd be a ripoff if we didn't talk about this.
Absolutely. You know, if we didn't cover this, I would advise all of our listeners to seek out other Nic Cage experts. But we bring you the truth here. So in the uncut version, what happens is, after calling out Terry's name, Zandalee proclaims she can't be who Johnny needs her to be. Cut version, she leaves, goes back to her apartment. In the uncut version, Johnny goes, yeah, you can, and then goes into the kitchen and gets a bottle of olive oil and comes back. And he starts spreading olive oil on her, like on her chest and stuff. This
can be good for the skin.
It's actually great for the skin.
Normal. I was going to say,
really?
this might be fine for the skin. This next part, I'm not a medical expert, but he then takes the olive oil and pours it on some cocaine on his cocaine mirror and mixes this up into a little bit of a mash and starts rubbing it on her butt. And she goes, I'm not going to do drugs. And he's like, you don't have to. Right before shoving his oily cocaine-laden fingers directly up inside her. And I'm just gonna say that's doing drugs. If you're putting cocaine on a mucous membrane on your body, you are doing cocaine.
If you're getting finger blasted with cocaine, you're doing cocaine.
Yeah, you are. If somebody fingers you with olive oil and cocaine laced fingers, you're doing cocaine.
And I'm wondering what that would do for my pastas. The olive oil and the cocaine, not the finger blasting.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I was a little bit confused there. I was like, wait, what is finger blasting going to do for pasta?
Are you stirring the pasta with your fingers afterwards? What's going on here?
No, I'm just adding a little cocaine to the olive oil, give it a little zest.
Yeah, no, I mean, that'll that will add some zing to your recipe. But
yeah, but hey, do you know who won't put cocaine on their hands and then try to finger blast you?
Is it Ice?
Is it the Virgin Mary?
No, Ice will definitely they will put fentanyl on their hands, but then like pretend to pass out because it's in their training or something.
All right, so who won't do that, Rich? Please tell me.
Do the Amish do cocaine? They get up real early, so
is cocaine powered by electricity? Because if not, I feel like it's on the table.
No, you can process cocaine without electricity.
All right, maybe the Amish are down to party. Maybe that's something I'm not aware of.
Maybe. I don't know. Let's see what ads we get. I hope it's like for Halliburton. Like that'd be kind of funny.
I hope it's for weird, generic, non-FDA approved uppers. Like they just talked about cocaine. Try turmeric.
I hope that it's FTX. Like they're still buying ads for some reason.
I mean, they gotta try. They try and gotta cash out the top investors still, baby. Just because the head guy goes down. You think when Ponzi got arrested, they weren't still trading that shit?
You mean Madoff?
That's the second one. Ponzi was the he was the OG.
Yeah, but Ponzi was kind of bad at it.
He was the original.
True. Okay, here are some non-cocaine ads. I can't promise that. Here's some ads.
Depending on when you're listening to this episode, that probably wasn't an ad for cocaine.
It could have been. I mean, I was
going to say, depending on how far in the future you're listening to this, buy cocaine from the Coca-Cola company.
Oh my God, do we have the first time traveling podcast?
Yeah, you never know, man. You put something on the internet, it's there forever. Weed's legal in a bunch of places now. Who fucking knows?
I mean, I feel like cocaine's got to be next. I don't know. What's the next drug? Maybe LSD?
Psychedelics are being decriminalized in a couple of states.
Yeah. I don't know. Can we bring back Quaaludes? I never got to do them and they seem fun.
That, honestly, not for nothing, that is the one I've heard the most about. Like, people who've done their fair share of experimenting in college with drugs in general. Everybody's like, what the fuck happened to Quaaludes? And I don't even know what originally went into them, but I am also curious what happened to them and why we don't have them anymore.
Yeah, like, it just seems like they just make you sleepy. I can buy speed over the counter at Vitamin Shop. Like, give me Quaaludes.
Yeah, bring it back at least for the black market, at least. Like underground. I don't know why it went out of popularity. It seemed to be like super cool in the height of drugs being cool, which was the 80s. And I never got to try that. I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's cooler stuff now.
Like what?
People doing, I don't know. Like, you can get weird stuff from China.
See, I'm too old now. I did all my hallucinogens in college, and now I feel like I need to contract my consciousness, not expand it.
Yeah, but like you can do like shatter now, and
well, that shit. I mean, the weed is outpacing me. I feel like one of the fucking old heads who is smoking Thai stick, who is like, weed nowadays is way too strong. It bugs me out.
You're just out here trying to buy mids.
For real, man. Mid gang every day. Just give me something that makes me feel a little bit tired and just turns down the volume on shit. I don't need to see God every time I want to get a little high. It's crazy.
It's called a tolerance. Grow one.
Dude, all right. So here's the thing. And this is the part about drug use that bothers me. While I was in college, throw this out there. One day I woke up and I looked at the calendar and a realization struck me. And while I was looking at the calendar, I was literally smoking a bowl and I was like, oh shit, I've been high every day for the last 3 years. That was the level of tolerance I was rocking. And then somewhere post my 30th birthday, I lost all of it. I don't know how it happened. I thought I was keeping up with my training, but it just disappeared.
That's me with alcohol. I don't know when it happened. It happened within the last 2 years where I could go out and have 7 drinks, 10 shots, and wake up the next morning and go to work. If I look at a beer now, I am going to wake up at least mildly hungover. I can do, if I have to work the next day, I can do 7 comfortably. Like mixed drinks, cocktails. I can do that. I'm not going to have the best time, but I'm not going to have the worst time. If I go over that, I'm basically useless for 24 hours.
See, I'm just a beer drinker. So like it depends on the ABV. I could have like 7 fucking PBRs, but you put a 9-pointer in front of me, I'm taking a nap.
So you're the observe and report. It's like, I decided to get my life together. It's like, oh, you're going to stop drinking? It's like, no, I'm switching to beer. I can crush those all day and still keep my shit together.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like Jennifer Tilly in Port of Call, New Orleans. Or no, fucking, the hell was that?
That wasn't Jennifer Tilly.
That was not Jennifer Tilly.
That was Stifler's mom.
That was Stifler's mom.
Yeah.
I don't know why my brain's not giving me her name right now.
Coolidge.
Probably
Jennifer
all the beer
Coolidge?
and weed. Yes, Jennifer Coolidge.
There you go. But yeah, no, if you're listening and you have access to, a high grade lab, bring back Quaaludes.
And if you're still listening, why? We haven't talked about Nic Cage in like 10 minutes.
Well, we're getting back to it because where were we? Oh yeah, that's right.
Cocaine hands.
We cut to the next day and Jerry is back in Zandalee's dress shop and she has a brief conversation with Jerry and then leaves to go to Johnny's studio, but he's out and about. And Zandalee starts rifling through his shit. And of course, as a plot device, Raimi, Marissa Tomei's character, calls and leaves a message on Johnny's answering machine while Zandalee is there. Meanwhile, we cut to Johnny being called up to Terry's office at his job site. He's clearly some type of like janitor, given his outfit. I think he's cut the sleeves off the janitor's uniform. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like that's the general vibe. And it looks like Terry invited him up on his lunch break. There's weird innuendos here because Johnny's eating a peach, and we also are under the impression that Terry has some sense that something's going on with Zandalee.
Something's afoot.
Yeah, exactly. Terry mentions that like the higher ups want to fire Johnny, and he's the only thing that's been keeping him from getting terminated. It's contentious, but it's primarily through subtext. Zandalee is still at Johnny's apartment, and Raimi keeps calling. So Zandalee trashes the answering machine, throws paint on Johnny's bed, and just starts like kicking shit around a bit. She fucks some shit up there. Next, we cut to Terry depressed on a bus, public transport, sort of singing to himself. And we cut immediately from that to Johnny tracking down Zandalee in a church. He lights up a cigarette in the church, which I thought was kind of funny.
It's very cool.
It is cool.
Because cigarettes are cool.
Cigarettes are cool, and smoking cigarettes where you're not supposed to is also cool. And the number one place you're probably not supposed to smoke cigarettes, I don't think you've ever been allowed to smoke cigarettes, is churches.
Oh, I'm sure in like the 30s.
I'm positive in like the up to the 50s, you could probably still rip a cig in fucking church.
I feel like they
can't have more than 3.
If you wanted to hack a butt, like you had to go. I don't think you could just light up in a pew. I'm just saying. I was raised Catholic, and I never saw a pew with like an ashtray. Like they had the little holders for the shot glasses of wine, but not an ashtray. But
I'm finding evidence that pews used to have ashtrays in them back as far as like the 70s.
That's fucking awesome. I missed out on the fun parts of being Catholic, I feel.
Yeah, that does kind of whip ass.
That does kind of whip ass. But Johnny also starts to try and get frisky with Zandalee, which is also a little funny, but it turns dark real quick. Like he asks her to move in with him, and then he starts shouting out cuss words to sort of like try and provoke God, and then drags Zandalee into a confessional to have sex with her. And this is super rapey. The scene is not great. She seems like she's crying and resisting, and Johnny is not taking no for an answer. And in the very next scene, he's sort of chasing her through the streets and being aggressive with her, and she starts like slapping him and hitting him when he corners her. And then she continues on home and sees Terry is like drinking on the balcony. She sees this and then runs off. She eventually comes home later and runs into Tata playing Scrabble with her secret lover, not so secret lover, Louie, at this point. And Tata takes some time to try and give Zandalee some advice about addressing the issues in her marriage, and it's based on communication and indicates that Zandalee should talk to Terry. So she goes to talk to Terry, who clearly has some suspicion that some shit's going on, and he tells her he doesn't want to know. The conversation quickly degenerates into them reciting poetry to each other again. And Zandalee like points out, like, we don't know how to talk to each other or fuck each other anymore. And she also suggests that they just get away for a while, just the two of them, and start clean. And this seems like a pretty good idea. Before they get to that, though, we get another bar scene where Johnny and Terry are back at the same bar that we've seen several times. And it sounds like there's some issues with Johnny and the drug dealer he's associated with as far as payment goes. And after that, in his conversation with Terry basically informs Johnny that Zandalee's been having an affair, but they're going to go reconcile, figure it out, just take a trip out to the bayou together. And Johnny asks Terry if he knows who Zandalee is, dallying with on the side. And he says, for all I know, it could be you. We also get an interesting insight here when Terry says he doesn't even hate the guy for this, or himself for putting Zandalee in a situation where she would seek out fulfillment from another person. He's just weirdly zen about the whole situation, but I do think it's an interesting insight into his character. So we cut to the bayou. where Terry and Zandalee are, cruising around on a boat. It seems to be going well. They get busy together. They seem to be having a good time in general. When they hook up, it's like on a random strip of beach along the bayou that's relatively isolated. So, a little bit scandalous. But at some point they swing by a bait shop to pick up beer or refuel or whatever it is. And sure enough, a monkey wrench is present in the form of Johnny being at this bar. So Terry sees him and is like, oh shit, like this is awesome. Come on outside. And so he goes out, and Zandalee does not seem enthused to see Johnny intruding on this attempt to fix their marriage. And we get a genuinely weird scene here where Terry and Johnny dance on the dock to music that's playing from the bar. It's oddly aggressive, and
it starts out weirdly sweet and then gets aggressive. It's like they're doing a dance they learned in high school or some shit. And then once it gets to a part where one of them stumbles is where it kind of becomes aggressive.
Yeah. I also think this is the part where we can talk about the weird undertones of sexual tension between Johnny and Terry, because it is present. Rich called it out astutely in one of the very first scenes we see them interacting with, and it's kind of just been subtly reinforced throughout the whole film, but it is a couple layers deep. The dance scene, them dancing together like a ballroom performance, I think is the most ham-fisted representation of it.
That's like the peak almost.
Yeah, it's when the simmer of that kind of comes to a boil, is how I would phrase that.
I agree. This is one of those love triangles where it's an actual triangle. You know what I mean?
Usually it's just a love fucking corner.
Yeah. This, I do think on purpose, there is an underlying attraction between Terry and Johnny, an element of competition and one-upsmanship that has an underlying basis in attraction. Not to go full on weeb here, but it's Naruto and Sasuke energy.
Please do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Naruto, Sasuke, there's a bunch of other ones. Anime is full of this kind of shit.
Yeah, I'm just picking the most accessible one here. It seems like they have some unresolved issues, both of them personally. And the dance scene really sort of puts a bow on that package, in my opinion. But also, this is where we get like the turn, the back and forth, where it seems like Terry knows, doesn't know, does he know? Because, Johnny says something specifically to Zandalee, is like, I'm here to take you home, or this, that, and the other. And Zandalee tells him to leave her alone. Terry pulls a fucking gun and points it at Johnny, and then Zandalee, and then to his own head in turn, before firing it out over the water.
So I got to ask, did you think when he pulled the gun that he had intended on doing a murder-suicide from the beginning? Because that's the vibe that I got off of that.
It's unavoidable to go, why the fuck did he have a gun? Like, I'm not sure what the original intention was.
I think he was going to try and get drunk out on the bayou and kill his wife, kill himself, and just fucking jump into the water.
I think he might have rethought that after the lovely reunion on a abandoned stretch of the bayou. You know what I mean? Like, it genuinely
seemed too mournful to me. That specific scene seems like it's him saying goodbye to her. At least to me, on my reading of it.
I almost felt like it was like a seeing her again for the first time thing, like maybe that was his original intention and maybe he was rethinking it, but Johnny showing up might have clinched the fucking deal. I'm not sure. I don't know. And maybe the ambiguity there was intentional. I don't know.
I could definitely see that. It doesn't seem like the kind of movie that wants to have very concrete absolutes in it.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, I think it does solidify that Terry fucking knew the basics of what was going on here. So like I said, Zandalee insists that it's over between her and Johnny, but somehow, for some reason, all three of them get on the boat again and just sort of take off into the bayou. This I don't really understand. Either way, they're on the boat, they're speeding, like Terry is like speeding around these curves and sort of stressing everybody out. Johnny takes over steering, and Terry starts just like wildly firing the gun out over the water, like doing like trick shots, like under the arm and like over his back and shit. It's honestly terrifying. If you've never been in a situation where somebody's acting reckless with a firearm, that shit is gonna clench your butthole real quick. So Johnny is driving the boat at this point, and when the gunshots start going off, he swerves at one point and it dumps Terry overboard. It does not seem intentional. Again, Terry is firing his gun wildly. It's a stressful situation, but it ends with Terry ending up in the water. Johnny grabs Zandalee and actually like hits her, like full on hits her before she jumps overboard to try and rescue Terry, who she yells out is caught in the hyacinth. Terry sinks below the surface of the water. As she gets to him, Johnny jumps overboard and swims to them, pulls Zandalee over to some trees growing out of the marshland where she can, touch the bottom, and then swims back for Terry. He pulls Terry up. They break the surface of the water. Terry seems like he might be unconscious before leaning in and biting a chunk out of Johnny's neck. This causes Johnny to loosen his grip, and Terry sinks below the surface. And despite diving several times, Johnny cannot find him, and we end scene. We cut to Zandalee standing in a graveyard at a particular spot, and Buscemi shows back up. Great comedic relief. And he comes up to her and asks her if she has any money. She offers him chicken and biscuits instead, and he says he's a vegetarian.
I mean, he still could have had the biscuits.
Yeah, I know, right?
He wanted that money for Quaaludes.
Yeah. She confesses freely that, she killed her husband, and this is his grave that they're standing at. Buscemi gives a little bit of an insightful speech here where he's like, you got to be careful what you wish for. You'll get it. She's like, I didn't wish for this. And he says something along the lines of like, thinking of it even once is as good as wishing it. It's an interesting speech, and I think it's important to the overall theme of the movie, but it completely lost me because Steve Buscemi is talking like old Greg in this scene, and that was incredibly distracting to me.
He just wanted that Bailey's out of that shoe.
It was like, we're in the graveyard.
Bailey's.
We got everything we need. Smooth, creamy braise. But after that scene, Zandalee is sort of languishing in her apartment as Johnny is languishing in his loft, doing drugs and painting. Tata seems kind of standoffish with Zandalee after, the death of her grandson. And Johnny goes to the bar, drinks a bunch of tequila, uses a slur against gay people, says he got fired from his janitor job or whatever, and is informed that some shit is really reaching the breaking point with his drug dealer. And then he goes back to his apartment with an art friend that he knew back in the day who found some success in New York to look at his available art. His friend is not impressed. He actually points out a painting. He's like, this is really good. You were on the right track here. And he's like, oh no, that's old, that's dog shit. And the guy's like, no, I think you're missing the point here. And he's like, well, he's like, in a couple years you're gonna be dead, and I'm gonna be standing next to the Van Gogh and Picasso. And the guy's like, all right, I'm gonna leave. And he's like, you want some coffee? He's like, no, just call me when you have new work.
You are crazy, sir.
Yeah. Another day, another Zandalee jogging trip. We cut to Johnny, and this is probably the winner for most unhinged scene in this film. It's
got my vote.
He's fucking up all of his paintings. He's like slashing shit, breaking shit. It just in a fit of rage. And he's just covering himself in black paint while in his underwear screaming, black it out, black it out. Definitely, in my opinion, best unhinged film scene in the film.
I'm still going Cocaine Hand, but
Cocaine Hand's
it's
good,
okay.
but it's not as like off his rocker as that is.
Cocaine Hand is off-putting, but him slapping paint on his mostly nude body, I think takes the prize.
You got me.
I think it's a top tier unhinged moment. I'm curious where this is going to land on the rankings.
I have an idea.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough. But when Zandalee gets back to her apartment from the jog, Johnny has just let himself in. They fight a bit and then start to fuck a bit, but Zandalee calls out Terry's name again as they're getting into it, and Johnny stops. Zandalee gets up, goes to the closet, and pulls out a coat and puts it on and walks out into the street. At first, I thought she was putting on one of Terry's old articles of clothing, but when I saw it in the full scene, it looks like the overcoat she was wearing in the panty drop scene, so I'm not sure. While Johnny's following her, he gets spotted by a conspicuously shot individual in a vehicle who we get the feeling is the Pepe we've been hearing about. And it seems really likely because in the next scene, we see him pulling around onto the street that they're walking down, full on holding like a handgun, like up as he's driving. And he pulls up, aims the gun at Johnny and goes to fire. Zandalee rushes in front of him and gets shot like fucking 4 times.
She doesn't rush in front of him. She's like to the side of him. This is a very poorly shot ending.
Yeah,
like, she's not in front of that man.
Well, I mean, she sees it happening and moves to intervene, right? That's what we're supposed to take away.
That's what we're supposed to understand about it. But like, I read this as poor shot composition. You could have made it seem like she was in the way, and that's why she got shot. But this dude didn't even take a second fucking shot when he realizes that he didn't hit Cage.
No. As a matter of fact, he shoots her 4 times and then it doesn't have a thought of like, oh shit, I just killed an innocent person. Just yells at Cage again and then just leaves.
Yeah, he yells, like, what is it he says? He says something like, you've got to make accounts payable or something.
Yeah, you got to make accounts payable.
It doesn't even make grammatical sense.
It's weird, like business jargon shoehorned into a drive-by shooting. It's bizarre.
I want to watch a movie about fucking business suit motherfuckers rolling around doing drive-bys.
Oh, have you not seen Falling Down?
Oh yeah, I have seen Falling Down.
So of course Jerry is just walking down the street to witness the demise of his friend and dressmaker. Johnny picks up Zandalee's body and starts walking down the street. Roll credits. That's the end of the movie. That's a bad ending. I'm gonna be upfront with it. That's a bad ending.
Yeah, no notes. I was just like, wait, that's the end of the movie.
I know. This is one of those things that's also kind of more or less taken from the original French novel, the Émile Zola, Thierry Requin fucking French novel that this borrows from liberally, because the girl does die. I don't remember exactly how. I think fucking Johnny's character is supposed to kill her in the original version, but she does end up dying, and it's like just a total downer ending.
Right. This is something that like it misses the point of the ending. It feels like La Boheme and Rent. Like, Ryan, have you ever read or seen La Boheme?
I have not. No.
Have you ever read or not read? Oh my God. If Rent was a book, I'd kill myself. Have you ever seen Rent, the musical or the movie? Either one of you?
I have not, but I'm not a big theater guy.
So, all right. In La Boheme, everything happens in Rent basically happens in La Boheme, but better, because La Boheme is better than Rent, because Rent fucking sucks. The end of the movie, this girl Mimi ODs on heroin in Rent and dies, and then fucking Adam Pascal sings a sad song, and that sad song brings her back to life because it needs to be happy. It completely misses the point of La Boheme, which is like art is pain and struggle. Like in the original La Boheme as well, they burn their art to create warmth, and they do it as like a passing joke in Rent the musical, when it's like you kind of missed the point here.
No, I agree with that, and having not seen those things, you just suggested a much better ending to this, which is Zandalee getting like committing to the romance with Johnny after the death of Terry. and getting addicted to drugs and overdosing, because I think one of the undercurrent themes of the film is that lust is not love, right?
Yes,
She loved Terry. She lusted after Johnny, but Johnny was an irredeemable fuck up.
Right. And the reason I bring up, those other works is because, as Ryan has mentioned a few times, that this is heavily based off of a French book, where I'm assuming that that this movie just missed the point of the book. That's kind of what I'm gathering.
I'd say to a certain extent, yes, it borrows liberally from the book. I wouldn't say it's based on it, because there's like an entire subplot about they're like Zandalee's character and Terry's character would have been fucking like second cousins if this was an adaptation of the French novel, and it was the aunt who forced them to get married. Terry would have been a hypochondriac who Zandalee would have completely resented from the beginning of the story. And it's the introduction of Johnny that makes her start realizing that she wants out of the marriage, which, yes, I do think that they completely missed that point of it. And there's another entire subplot about the aunt who is sort of Tata's kind of parallel in this. She becomes like catatonic for the majority of that book, and they end up like killing her off too at some point.
Gotcha.
So like there's a lot that they leave on the table, but like the broad strokes of
we lost you.
No, I think my internet just had itself a hiccup, but like the broad strokes of love versus lust are still kind of there, but I do agree it does sort of miss the point of the original work.
Okay.
I think it misses the point from a narrative perspective, in that the ending is out of sync with the sort of moral point that they appeared to be driving to, which again is the difference between love and lust, which Zandalee clearly loved Terry, but there was a physical aspect that was missing, and Johnny was just the right sort of fucked up, dangerous, forbidden sort of romance that captivated her, and it ruined her life. So the death could have been done in a way to reinforce that to a higher degree, and they just sort of failed to stick the landing. If they stuck the landing, I'd probably have a very different opinion of this film. As is,
I think it kind of works with her as a casualty of Johnny's lackadaisical view of life in general. But
I don't think it works in a way of, like how we're supposed to react to her and Johnny as characters, where I feel like a more fitting ending, if they wanted to, take the ending into their own hands, would have been, have the scene play out how it plays out, but just have her coldly watch as Johnny is murdered, and to her have no reaction.
Or her get shot in
or they both
pure
get shot.
accident.
I think it would have worked better if they both got shot.
That would have worked too.
In the original, everybody dies.
Well, no, also, again, I think her bearing the consequences of the action and the fuck up stumbling away is even more poignant, right? If they didn't have her try and jump in front, if the drug dealer coldly just killed her instead of Johnny, leaving him to have to fucking just sort of wallow in grief, would have made more sense. Her jumping in front at this point, after she clearly rejects him as a replacement to Terry, would have worked better for the overall message that they've been trying to convey in the first place. Okay, you know what I mean?
Here's my thought on this.
Took the worst ending. I'm sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
I think she's committing suicide in that moment. I don't think she's protecting Johnny. I think she is done with life now.
That's a good read.
Interesting take. Okay.
That's a better read. I think,
because I don't see protectiveness in her face in that final scene. I see her rushing towards gunfire.
That I mean, I'm not sure if you're giving them more credit than they deserve.
I might be. I did really enjoy this movie, regardless of its assorted problems, but like that's what I got out of it personally.
The way it played, the way it was shot, seemed more sacrificial than suicidal to me. But
I think that may have been an editing problem. This may be one of those you can't put such a downer ending into a movie kind of situations. It might be studio intervention. I'm not sure. There's not a lot of background information on this movie. It's not well loved enough for there to be interviews with like the filmmakers.
We need to start that. We need to get Judge Reinhold on here.
Honorable Judge Reinhold.
I do like that reading. I think that's it might be the most charitable, whether intentional or not. It does square the circle, in my opinion, for that, because I do think from a narrative perspective, it does have to come around to, she starts off with this sort of revulsion, falls into this sequence of events that ruins her life and her marriage to somebody that she did genuinely care for, and then she decides to sort of punch her own ticket by proxy. That makes a lot of sense. That makes it a more satisfying overall story, start to finish.
Right. I think that really finishes off her character arc. And like you said, it's probably a generous reading of it, but I'm usually pretty generous in my reading of film. Unless something is blatantly against the way a story should be going, I'm usually inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt, and that maybe there was some kind of a technical issue, like I said, with the studio maybe having some kind of intervention and trying to get them to put the ending a little bit more optimistic than the woman who has been tossed around between these two men who are both monsters in their own right committing suicide in the end.
Yeah, no, I like that. I honestly, I'm gonna walk away from this with your perspective on the ending. That's gonna make me feel better about the movie in general. So that's what I'm choosing to take away from it. That's one of the reasons why that has nothing to do with the listener. This is just for me. I can appreciate that. That is a story I can get behind and go, okay, this has an ethos. It has a message, and this is what was delivered. That's better. I feel much better now.
Yeah, I definitely suggest checking out Thirst, the South Korean movie that's based on the same novel, Tari Rakin, because it's got a much, much darker ending on purpose, and it's fantastic.
I'm about it, but we do have to get to our spot check rankings.
Yeah, because this is the last one before the bloodbath happens.
Yep.
So I'm going to kind of start with the easy one, which is Cage Hair. And I'm going to put it right up against Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah.
This is top of the barrel. This is the best one.
I put it over Sorcerer's Apprentice. And
then we have a new number one slot.
And I'll tell you why. It's because he has the long hair. I will say this. It's not as good long hair as Sorcerer's Apprentice. The hats might have some impact there, but the Toyota symbol facial hair with the mustache and the flavor saver, they do it for me. That pushes it over the finish line.
He just looks so greasy. Yeah. It's perfect for the character.
It is.
All right, so we're gonna go with how good is this movie, and I know we're gonna have I'll say minor disagreements. I think Ryan kind of brought both of us around on this.
Yeah, still middle of the pack.
I'm kind of choosing a place to go because, all right, just to speed run real quick, it's better than Next Christmas Carol, G-Force, USS Indianapolis, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, Valley Girl, Sorcerer's Apprentice. Knowing, is it better than Kiss of Death?
Yes. I think it sticks the landing a little bit better than Kiss of Death overall, even though, like we just discussed, the actual ending is a little bit fucky, but I think it's a little bit better than Kiss of
Ryan's
Death.
Ending, I'll put it above Kiss of Death.
Okay, so now we have the kind of gatekeeper movie, which is Between Worlds.
This shit ain't going past that one for me.
All right.
Nope.
Yeah,
that baby is doing work.
I will say this is the second movie on this podcast that I actually want to own.
I bought all of them.
All right. So now we're talking
Cage performance. You don't own those. You own the license to watch them as long as they're on those services.
Yeah. I know the dystopia we live in. I still paid money for them.
Let's talk about Cage performance. Again, better than Next Christmas Carol, G-Force, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, Sorcerer's Apprentice, USS Indianapolis, Rumblefish. Better than Knowing, better than Valley Girl. Is it better than Kill Chain?
I might save this for our ranking episode because I don't know if his heart and soul was in this.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at the bottom with a question mark right now.
That sounds good to me because I think it might be better. He might be a better performance than Kill Chain, but I think we need to litigate that on the ranking episode.
We do. We really got to dive in further for this one because Cage is, we've gotten to know him through doing these episodes. I don't know if this is his best foot forward. And I think that's really going to impact where I would put his personal performance in this.
I mean, the power of the paint scene alone, I think, puts it over Kill Chain personally. But again, this is a discussion for later.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking unhinged scene.
Paint scene. Absolutely paint scene.
Yeah, no, but okay. So we can all agree it's probably a top third of this list, right?
Easily, yeah.
So I'm going to start from the top because it is less unhinged than the Bad Lieutenant N-word drop scene.
Oh, the Lucky Crack Pipe, yeah.
The Lucky Crack Pipe scene, yes.
Less unhinged than that, yeah.
Is it less unhinged than the Crazy Eyes scene in Vampire's Kiss?
That's really hard.
That is tough.
Then I'm going to put it below that and above Between Worlds.
That's also tough. Okay,
that seems right for now, but that's another one that might nudge up or down.
Yeah, we're going to dedicate a fair amount of time to accurately placing these next episodes. So
yeah, unhinged.
We might need to clip these and watch them back to back.
I was gonna say fair use. Yeah, Rich, you've been talking about YouTube things. Could we clip together all the unhinged scenes and get away with fair use on that?
I have to see what the rules are, but I think so.
As long as there is an amount of commentary and review, and I believe that would technically be considered fair use.
All right, we'll consult with counsel and see if we can do that.
Yes. Unhinged film. I'm gonna go less unhinged than Vampire's Kiss. Less unhinged than Between Worlds.
Yeah.
Less unhinged than Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah.
So the question now is Honeymoon in Vegas.
I think this is more unhinged. Yeah.
I was kind of leaning towards that as well. So actually, overall, this is a pretty decent Cage film. Like, it's middle of the pack movie-wise, but his performance...
Oh, don't forget nudity. We got to put him on the nudity scale.
Yeah, this is all right. So I know.
I mean, well, it's essentially this and Rumblefish.
So this
beats Rumblefish.
Yeah. Correct.
Because in the cocaine olive oil scene, we get, I don't even know if it's a shadow. We get.
I think we get ballsack.
I think we get tip. Just a tip, just for a minute, just to see how it feels.
Just as a treat.
Yeah, no, this definitely beats Rumblefish on the Cage nudity scale for
definitely
sure.
The most nudity we've gotten from Nic Cage.
Yep, absolutely.
Ooh, this is gonna be a bloodbath next week.
It's gonna be tough. From when we cut tonight to when we record the other one, I have so much homework to do. I might make a PowerPoint.
I think I'm gonna have to rewatch like the first maybe 10 movies that we watched.
I'm gonna have to at least spot check for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna watch everything that's not like, I think I can exclude Next, Christmas Carol, G-Force, USS Indianapolis, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, Valley Girl, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Knowing.
I don't think I have to relitigate or rewatch the stuff that's in this block before the ranking episode. Everything prior to the last ranking episode, I think, is fair game for a rewatch.
Oh no, I'm going off of where I have things ranked because this middle of the pack is just an absolute monster. Like, we're gonna have to rewatch Kiss of Death, Zandalee, Between Worlds, Kill Chain, Gone in 60 Seconds, Vampire's Kiss, 8mm, Snake Eyes, The Honeymoon in Vegas.
It's gonna be a busy fucking week.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, we have about 20. We have about 20 hours of Nic Cage movies to watch.
So while we're doing that, feel free to give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Twitter at cagefight_pod.
Patreon.com/Nic Cage Fight. $3 a month gets you all these episodes without ads, as well as allowing me to eat, which is nice. And Josh to eat. I mean, let's not forget about Josh. And also Ryan to eat. What do you eat, Ryan? You usually eat comic books, right?
I do eat comic books. They're delicious. Nom, nom, nom.
And foreign films.
Yes, but
I don't eat those. You don't want to know what I do with those.
Mostly out of Korea.
I was gonna say tariffs are killing Ryan right now. You gotta help him out.
But yeah, we all put a lot of hard work here. As Josh said, we all watch the movies numerous times. Josh does the play-by-play, Ryan does our editing, I do essentially our uploading, a lot of the social media stuff that you see happen. We all have our things that we do, and it's tough. Give us money, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. But to all of our listeners, have a happy holidays with your family, a wonderful new year, pick out those resolutions. And as always, please remember, we appreciate you.
Bye-bye.